Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be doing a nice little winter scene, a little deer silhouette, some snowflakes. And if you don't want to do the deer silhouette and you'd rather do a wolf silhouette or a Bigfoot silhouette, whatever strikes your fancy, you can put that in. I'll be showing you the deer silhouette for this. You don't need a whole lot to do this painting. As far as paint goes, you only need 4 colors. I get black, true navy, white, and nutmeg, but really any black, blue, white, and brown will work. As far as brushes go, you don't need expensive brushes to do this. Any variety pack of brushes usually has everything you need. The only thing it might not have is a fan brush. You don't have to use a fan brush. I like the fan brush because you can get really nice pointy tops on the trees and really nice narrow trees for the background ones, but you don't have to use a fan brush. You can use a chip brush, which you can get anywhere. Any of your hardware stores, like 99 cents. They're everywhere. I have 2 detail brushes I use. You don't need 2, you could just use 1. And then for our background and our snow, just a 1.5, 2-inch flat brush. Again, doesn't have to be fancy. I have had this brush, I got out of a variety pack, and I've had it for 10 years. it's suited me well. If you want to have charcoal to sketch in your deer or whatever silhouette you're doing, you can get, I like to use the willow charcoal. Doesn't cost a lot of money to do this paint. You don't need a lot of stuff. It's pretty simple. So let's get started. We're going to start with our background first. And for that, you're going to need blue, brown, and white. You don't need a lot of brown, but just put a bit over here. You're going to need your 1.5 to 2-inch flat brush. We're going to start in the middle of the canvas here. We're going to start with a darker blue in the middle, and then we'll add more and more white to the brush as we move our way up. So we'll have kind of a light blue moving into a dark blue, and then we're going to put our snowy ground in last. So let's start in the middle. What you'll do is you'll take your blue and put a little bit of brown into it. Just kind of graze it a little bit. And we'll put a little bit of white in there. Now if you want it to be a little more blue, a little brighter blue, you don't want quite as much brown in it, but if you want it more subdued, more of a grayish color, you can add a little more brown to it. I think that's good right there. And we're going to start right in the middle of the canvas here. And make sure as you go that you're covering the canvas completely with color. Sometimes if you're not using enough paint, when it dries, you'll see the little gaps between because the canvas has kind of a tooth to it. It's a little bit rough. And if you don't use enough paint, you will see some of those little white spots when it dries. So we've got our dark blue in here. Bring that down just a little further. We want to bring it down right to the point where our snowy ground is going to start. That's all right. That'll be covered up later anyway. And now, as we work our way up, we're going to go just straight into the white. We're not going to clean our brush. We're going to leave the same dirty brush. We're just going to load it with white. I'm going to start mixing as we go. Now you do have to work kind of quickly here, because if you let this paint dry while you're working, it doesn't blend. And acrylics dry really fast. So one thing I tend to do as I'm painting, especially backgrounds, is I'll sometimes go back down and rework where I started, just to keep it wet, keep the paint moving. It also helps to spread out the paint a little bit so you don't have big globby spots. My canvas away from me. Now see, I haven't added any more blue to my brush. I just keep adding white as I'm going. I have not added any more blue. Make sure you get all the way up into the corner of the canvas, right along that top border. And at this point, if you want to paint the outside borders of your canvas, you can do that. I never really do, but you can. Some people do. A lot of people in my classes like to do that. But we'll work on getting our snow in next. And I'm not worried about these blue patches I've got down here. If you get a drop of paint while you're working on the background down here, you'd kind of want to smooth that out. So it's okay that that's there. We're going to be covering it up anyway and working with it, because as we put the blue or the white snow in, there will be blue tones in it. So if your white on your plate is all full of blue like mine, you can add a fresh pile of white. Or if you don't mind really blue snow, you can work with it as it is. But I'm going to put some fresh white paint on there. Still not washing my brush. Might wipe some excess off on the corner of your plate if you want to, but I'm going to go into the white. Let's do kind of a test run, see how blue this turns when we put our ground in. It's turning pretty blue. That's okay. Straight into white again. And we're just going to fill the rest of this in. And we want kind of a little, we don't want this to be straight across. We want a little bit of a dip in here, a little hill. We want it to roll a little bit. And we'll just fill this in with white. And as that blue mixes around, that's okay. Let it do that, because it kind of adds some dimension and some interest to the snow itself, because if you go just straight white with no blue in it, it's kind of boring. Try not to get any of that brown on your plate into this though. We don't want brown snow. I think that looks good. All right, while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to put in our little background trees. The little hazy pines in the background, or spruce, little conifers in the background. And it may seem odd to you that we're not going to use green at all in this painting, but we're not. You can continue to use this plate if you want. We've got the colors we need on it. If yours is really messed up, you've got blue and white and everything all mixed together, you can grab a new plate. We're going to need the fan brush for the little trees. If you don't have a fan brush, you can use a chip brush, a little 1-inch chip brush, but fan brush is nice to have. You can make really nice little pointy tree tops if you really like those pointy tree tops. So what we're going to do for the background trees is we're going to do the blue and the brown, and we're not going to mix any white in it. So I've just got the blue and the brown over here, and I'm going to make a little pile over here of it. And I accidentally got a little bit of white in there, but not the end of the world. Now you want to make sure that it tends more to the blue than the brown once you've got it mixed, because right here it's looking awfully brown. Up here it's a lot more blue. We don't want brown trees. We just want kind of a grayed blue. And now what you can do is wipe the excess paint off your brush, because you don't need a lot of it to start off. So I don't have a ton of it. It's not globbed on there. We're going to start up in here, and we don't want to bring this all the way down to the snow. We're going to leave kind of a buffer zone. So let's start right up in here, and it's gonna, the tree line's gonna kind of do one of these numbers here. It's gonna zigzag down. So let's start our little trees. And we're holding the brush vertically, and we're making little tree tops. And it really helps if this paint is still just slightly wet. It can really help to blend that, but you don't want it to be super wet, because sometimes if you're working and the paint is still wet on the background, it just makes mud, and you end up with just this big blurry muddy mess. So a little wet is fine. Really wet, you want to give it a minute. So I keep reloading this, but I'm not putting a whole lot of paint on. I'll show you a mess of a plate. I've got some color over here, just a little bit, not a lot. We're just tapping in. And now as we get down away from these pointy tops, you can bring it down and kind of blend down as you go. And ideally what we're looking for is we're looking for this to just kind of fade right into nothing. Now as you go, make sure you vary the height of your trees a little bit, because we don't want it to look artificial. Because things in nature rarely are that neat and lined up perfectly. So we make some tall, make some short. But we do want an overall trend of these trees to be in descending height here. And again, as we go down here, we can fade this down. If it's not fading well for you, you can use your finger. Don't be afraid to finger paint. I won't judge. I do it all the time. And it's okay to have some like darker spots and some lighter spots in your trees. It's actually a good thing, because it adds a little bit more interest to it to have those dark and hazy spots. Makes it look a little more realistic than just all being one color. All right, I'm gonna head down, blend some of this. Now if you find as you're trying to blend this down that it's lifting paint off of your background color and you're getting white spots, stop. Let it dry for a few more minutes. Work on your tree tops. That's what I'm gonna do, because I can see I'm getting some little white spots right now. I don't know if you can tell from the camera there, but we're gonna bring this, I mean, you can bring it over all the way if you want to, or you can bring it over just a little 3/4 of the way. Whatever you want, whatever you think looks good. So we're holding the brush vertically for tree tops, and then you can switch to horizontal for filling in and for blending. And sometimes I like to actually go back in with a little more paint on my brush and just add a little bit of bolder color just here and there. I just like the way it looks, to have that variety of shades. All right, and that just kind of fades into the background there. So it just looks like, you know, it's kind of hazy. Make sure you like and subscribe so that you can continue to paint along with me, because I do plan on having a lot more videos. So thanks.